Hello, welcome to Ink Brush Pen and Watercolor Pencil. Let's have some fun drawing. This is my aqua brush. I can fill it with water and use it just simply by squeezing and applying that brush to the paper. These are my set of Derwent Inktense watercolor pencils. They're called Inktense because they're very saturated, which for me means that it's easy to use any of them. Although I think on Amazon you can probably buy some very reasonable watercolor pencils for very cheap. The Derwents are a little bit more expensive, but I really love them. So I am making sure everything's sharp. I'm doing a test page for you to look at, as you can see. Up on my pencil case, I have a smaller, kind of messier color test sheet for when I'm out there drawing on the beach or in the snow or what have you, so I can check my colors. Now I am lightly squeezing my aqua brush, and I want you to notice that many colors get very vibrant once the water hits them. So you're going to need to do your own test of your own colors if and when you get them. Once they're wet and on the paper, it's easy to move the color around, very easy. But after about 10 or 15 seconds, then the color will have sort of melted into the paper pigments and you can't erase them or get them out. It's just like real watercolor. You can if you wanted to downplay a little bit of color, you could get a wet Q-tip and sort of mop it up a little bit. But what you want to practice doing is what I'm doing right now. Working very fast and situating the color where you want it, I would say within about 10 or 15 seconds. So if you're doing small areas like I am in this demo, that's pretty easy to do. That's why if you're going to do a big area like a big sky, going to be harder to do. You have to get a lot more of the pigment down with the watercolor pencil, and you have to use a very large brush to get it uniformly wet and avoid streaks. So I would say ideally, watercolor pencils are great for smaller areas and details and high vibrancy. Now let's see. I'm almost done with this one. I'm on heather gray. I've got charcoal gray. Those are all really dark. I'm going to have to remember not to put those on too dark. Okay. Done with that. Here is my finished chart. And now I'm going to move to the ink brush pens. An ink brush pen is usually permanent ink, meaning it's waterproof, but not every brush is like that. Oh, well, let's try this one out too. I'm just going to write the brand name on this piece of paper so you can see about the width of the brush pen. Some brush pens, here's my favorite one, that has a really long brush on it. And this Pentel has a cartridge so that once you've used up the cartridge, it's easy to shake it and get the new ink cartridge working. And I want you to see how thick it can get. It can also get quite thin. So that's why I love it. It's ideal for calligraphic line, and it's also waterproof. Here's a micron, which is a favorite of many, many people. Pigma is a nice one too. I like that too. Actually got one at the Daiso for $1. Works great. So you just never know when you're going to pick up a really great ink brush pen. And it's fun to fool around with to work on your drawing styles. This one's Pilot. Okay. Now what I'm going to do now is run some water over it. See which ones are actually waterproof. Waterproof, waterproof, not waterproof. Ooh, that Ultra Soft is the only one that is not waterproof. So you might want to keep that in mind if you are going to do watercolor or watercolor pencils on your artwork. I'm using this sketch pad from Hobby Lobby called Master's Touch, by the way. Oh, let me show you my sketches from going to Olvera Street in Los Angeles. Here's a father and a daughter walking on the street. And I did this very quickly with my Pentel ink brush pen. And now I am putting a few colors on it from the pencils. And I am aquifying them, which as you can see really brings up the tone and the saturation. Now I did another one at Olvera Street. I actually did a number of them, but there's one of the tree that I'm going to use for my demo today because I've always wanted to make a big color piece out of it, and this is the best time to do it. So I'm going to finish up the watercolor here. One hint I do have for you is keep a paper towel on your lap. When you move from one color to the next, you can wipe your brush off, or keep a water bowl and rinse it off in the water bowl too. Sometimes that can be very important. Notice I haven't done that once. Okay. You can see where the water is glistening for a moment as I'm running it over the paper. I think the watercolor pencils are easiest to use if it's a smoother paper. I think they're going to be a little harder to use on a rougher watercolor paper. Okay, let's see. I'm going to find my tree. It's the huge tree. There it is. I drew that when dancers were dancing under the lights. And I'm going to recreate this piece because I don't want to touch my original sketch. But I'd like to use my Pentel ink pen on it on a larger piece of paper. I've got it ready to go. What I'm going to do is I'm going to look at where the tree is and how massive it is and how it fits the picture plane. The top spreads all the way across and the buildings across in the middle. There's going to be a big elliptical plant holder for the tree, and of course a lot of people indicating the crowds and the festivities. So now I'm taking my H pencil, I'm using my hands to kind of figure out how large I can actually make this tree. Now I'm drawing real time here, which what that means is I'm drawing very lightly with the H pencil, so it's going to be harder to see on this TV screen. But I think in the next frame I will darken it for you so you can see it a little bit better. I'm putting in the planter bed, the oval planter bed, and about where the people are going to go, I'm just making like a light box indicating where I'm going to put the crowd of people, where I'm going to put, there's the top of the buildings. So I'm doing a very light layout just to get my basic proportions down. Okay, here you can see it a little bit better, and it's pretty vague, the curves of the tree. I'm not being very fastidious with this layout because I know that all I need is basically a sound proportion, and the real work will be done with my ink brush pen. Well, right now I'm going to start using my Pentel ink brush pen to draw the form of the tree. Notice how I am holding it and applying it. If I want a very light line, I hold it steadily, quite light, and I just let the tip of the pen do the work. If I need a heavier area like that, I'm going to press down harder. So I'm used to using this kind of a pen. If this is your first time using a calligraphic pen like this, you may want to just doodle for a half hour or so just to kind of get the feel of it. I'm putting in outline, I'm putting in some hatch marks for shading. You can't see it because I don't have the camera pointed in the right direction. Yeah, that's right, move it. So as you can see, I'm starting to do all of that. Okay, here it is finished. Well, and here is the comparison to the actual drawing, the original drawing. That was a wonderful day. I spent the whole day there at Olvera Street. Just drawing and drawing. It's so beautiful. Lots of people, beautiful display stands. And this enormous tree that's been there for all these years. I think at least 100 years. And from this tree they hang lanterns, and it's adjacent to the show area where they put the dancers and the dancing shows. Now, what I've done is I have put the frontal branches and trunk of the tree with just simply outlines. At this point, I'm putting in the back part of the tree. I'm inking it up solid so that it reads a bit like a silhouette. If you've never done this before and you want to try this method, what I recommend is take your pencil and kind of mark the areas that you want to go with, because the ink, there's no erase in the ink. It's very unforgiving. Okay, there's the finished tree with the black branches in the back. And now I'm putting in a couple of smaller twig branches. Notice that if you really want to show off your space, whatever's going behind something like the black branches that go behind the white branches, make sure it spans through it and beyond it. There's my original drawing. I'm deciding are there any other areas I need to work on. Oh, here I am. I'm putting some of the texture of the bark in where the branches have grown and bent over the years. And what I'm doing here's like a demonstration here. The tree is going to be circular. And so what you're looking at are indications of the elliptical structure of the tree. So whenever there's a big bend or something like that, I'm going to put in a few of those hatching lines to indicate the form of the tree. You don't want to get too carried away. It's better that you add a little less than a little bit too much. Okay, I'm drawing this elliptical pretty good. I think I mess up on the next one a little bit. Now I'm inking in the edge of the planter box, and I'm putting some details in there. I really love working with these ink brush pens. Once you get the hang of it, it's super fun. It's just kind of enjoyable. And if you like to draw, definitely something you should try. Now, just for the right torque, I am drawing upside down so I can lay in the tip of that brush right to the edge of the planner. The tip of the brush will always give you a lot of control, and it can easily define any kind of an outline. Okay, so now what am I going to do next? I'm going to put in silhouettes of tiny leaves. This is going to take some time. And you can't just throw in leaves anywhere you want. You have to think about the clusters of the leaves that you're actually seeing in real life. It'll make your drawing a lot better. Here I'm drawing leaves in a pattern, and they don't look real, do they? They're all the same size, and they're equally spaced apart. Now, the one I'm doing right now are different sizes of leaves, different shapes, angles, clusters. Those look more realistic if I were to put those on the branch. Okay, here it is done. I've also put in lantern strings around the dance area. It's getting pretty busy right now because I still have to put the buildings and the peoples in. What am I doing here? I'm checking that I need to do anything else. I got the girl with the umbrella in. I moved the umbrella over so she'd look like she's holding it. Let's see. Okay, now time to start on the people. The people are in a cluster too. They're all watching the dancing. And there's about 2 layers of people. So what I'm doing is I'm indicating where they'll be standing and where the tops of their heads are. Now I'm doing this freehand because that's the way I did it when I was actually there at Olvera Street. But what you may want to do with people especially is pencil them in to make sure you have the right proportion and such. They don't have to be perfect. And I did mine in silhouette because they're just a whole lot easier to draw, and they look good with the ink pen being silhouette as well. Okay, now I've got most of the inking down, so I'm taking my eraser and I'm cleaning up my construction lines because I am going to get ready to start putting color on. So I'm thinking about what colors do I want to use. By the way, I have this paper taped down really well to my drawing board so that when I do erase it and I work on it, it doesn't wrinkle or crunch. So at this point, let's see, I'm going to decide colors. The warm colors will really pop, so I want to make sure I do the lanterns in warm colors. The sky, I'm picking a couple different blues to use. One of them is an aquamarine. Okay, I do have yellow, orange, and red down for a number of the lanterns. Whoop. I have also started coloring with the aquamarine pencil. This is not an Inktense pencil. The aquamarine color is beautiful, but it won't saturate enormously when I put water on it later. It's just a regular watercolor pencil. And again, I've used these for years, so I really like the ink tints. I like that heavy saturation. Okay, now I'm going to take a darker blue. I think it's a bright blue that I'm using here. And my pencils are very sharpened, makes it really easy to do this. I'm holding the back of the pencil and I'm just spreading the pigment around. I'm not going to put too much on right away, and the reason is it's going to get more saturated when I put water on the top. If I need it to be even more saturated, I can let the paper dry and do it again. Put some more paper on top. I have gotten my aqua brush and my larger soft brushes to do the sky. And I want to tell you, I used a really cheap paper to do this work. And once I start applying water to it, the paper will start to buckle, which is not a good thing. If you plan on doing this, you might want to use a thicker drawing paper or even a watercolor paper for more control. I put a variety of blues at the top. I'm patting it with the brush. Remember the rule, you have about 10 seconds before the colored water slips into the paper. So, excuse me, the first few minutes are really important to move that color around where you want it to be. Because once it's sort of melted into the paper and started drawing, it's really hard to get it out. Another thing is, my paper after it dried went flat again. But if yours doesn't go flat, what you can do is iron it with an ironing board. And that'll get out most of the wrinkles if you have any at all. Thank goodness I used the right ink brush pen, permanent ink, not budging at all. So I had a lot of fun with this one. Here it is finished. I think I went a little overboard with the color and the ink, but I had a blast with it. I like the black and white version, but I also like this saturated color version as well. The next one you'll be looking at is done in the same way, ink first, then watercolor pencil, and this is a tree at the Cal Poly campus. You can see the CLA building in the background. It's very saturated as well. I like this one a lot. Too bad they took that tree out. It's gone now. Here's one I did this summer in London, and I sat on a bench and gave myself a perspective challenge, and I drew it with the ink brush. It's very complicated. I did not put people in for that reason. I really like the black and white version, but I also put in a color version, which, as you can see, has more of a light source on the left side. And I was able to use yellow panels for the left side of the large building and violet for the right. Here's one I did in Costa Mesa Beach in Southern California last summer. Just a blue Derwent Inktense pencil, paper, and an aqua brush. Simply draw on your imagery with the pencil and then whip out your aqua brush and wet one area at a time and smooth the color into the paper. It's actually really easy to do. It was so easy I can do it anywhere, at the beach, in the mountains. And here I am at Mt Baldy last winter with all the snow with my dog Keko, and I used the same blue Derwent pencil to draw the snow and the trees. Even in the freezing weather, it handled really nice, super easy. So think about your color choices and have a blast whatever you do. I can't wait to see what you do accomplish. Thanks for listening.